There is a green that laughs at spinach. It contains more iron than meat, more calcium than milk, and more protein than soybeans. It survives drought that kills lettuce. It endures frost that destroys kale. And once you scatter its seeds, it returns every spring for decades without replanting. For centuries, peasants and kings alike relied on it. Then it vanished from our tables. We did not abandon it because it failed us. We abandoned it because it refused to obey. A plant that reseeds itself forever, that spreads without command, that feeds without cost, cannot be monopolized. And what cannot be monopolized cannot be controlled. This is the story of the mineral-rich leaf that fed empires, survived famines, and still grows wild in the cracks of forgotten places. Before we go further, if reclaiming this knowledge matters to you, subscribe now and share this with someone who needs to remember what the system made us forget. The archive opens in the mountains of the Mediterranean, sometime around 4000 BC. Neolithic farmers clear rocky hillsides to plant emmer wheat and barley. Between their crops, a wild green sprouts unbidden. Leaves shaped like arrowheads, stems hollow and crisp. They pull it as a weed at first, then hunger teaches them. The leaves taste bitter but filling. Boiled, they become tender. Mixed with grain, they stretch meals through lean seasons. This is rumex, the dock family, specifically Good King Henry and its cousins, the perennial sorrels and mountain spinach that civilizations built themselves upon. The Greeks called one variety lapithon. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, prescribed it for blood disorders in 400 BC. He did not understand hemoglobin or iron molecules, but he saw pale, weak patients grow strong after eating these greens daily. Roman soldiers carried seeds in their packs. Pliny the Elder recorded 24 species in his natural history, listing uses for each. Dock leaves soothed wounds. Sorrel cooled fevers. The roots, boiled in vinegar, treated skin infections. Legions marched on roads lined with these plants. When supply lines broke, when wagons failed to arrive, soldiers foraged. The greens kept them alive. In medieval Europe, they called it Good King Henry, named for King Henry IV of France, or perhaps for the folklore spirit Good King Harry, the elf who blessed households. Chenopodium bonus henricus. Every cottage garden had a patch. It was the first green vegetable of spring, pushing through snow when nothing else would grow. Farmers did not plant it every year. They planted it once. The plant lived for decades. Deep taproots, thicker than a thumb, diving 2 feet down. Each spring, new shoots. Each summer, seed stalks rising 4 feet tall. The seeds scattered, and next year, seedlings appeared in paths, between stones, anywhere the wind carried them. You could not kill it if you tried. The leaves were picked young, before bitterness set in. Boiled twice, the water discarded to remove oxalic acid. Then fried with butter or mixed into pottage, the thick stew that kept peasants alive. The shoots, harvested like asparagus, were steamed and served to nobility. The seeds, though small, were gathered and ground into flour during famines. Every part had value. Nothing was wasted. But the real power was hidden in the leaves, locked in the cells, unknown to those who ate it, who, centuries later, chemists would measure it. Good King Henry contains 7 milligrams of iron per 100 grams of raw leaves. Spinach, the modern icon of iron, contains 2.7, nearly 3 times more. Calcium, 285 milligrams per 100 grams. Milk has 125, more than double. Protein, 4.2 grams per 100 grams raw. Soybeans, cooked, have 11, but soybeans require planting, harvest, processing. Good King Henry requires nothing, just scissors. Vitamin C, 80 milligrams per 100 grams. An orange has 53. Magnesium, potassium, manganese, zinc, folate. The profile reads like a multivitamin designed by nature for survival. The oxalic acid, the compound that makes it bitter, binds some of the calcium and iron. Critics point to this. They say the minerals are not fully bioavailable, but 2 boilings remove 80% of the oxalates. What remains is one of the most nutrient-dense foods on Earth, and it grows without asking. By the 1500s, Good King Henry spread across Europe. From Spain to Scandinavia, from Ireland to Poland, every village had it. It was not prestigious, it was not fancy, it was survival. In England, poor families ate it daily. Wealthy families fed it to servants, but everyone relied on it. Then the world changed. In 1492, Columbus returned from the Americas. Within decades, ships carried new crops back to Europe: potatoes, tomatoes, maize, beans. By the 1600s, these novelties became staples. Potatoes yielded more calories per acre than grain. Tomatoes grew fast and fruited heavily. The new crops required annual planting. They needed tilled soil, cleared fields, purchased seeds. They fit the emerging agricultural model, the one that required labor, control, and commerce. Good King Henry, by contrast, required nothing. It did not need planting. It did not need weeding. It reseeded itself forever. For farmers transitioning to market agriculture, this was a problem. A crop that maintains itself cannot generate yearly seed sales. It cannot create dependence. In the 1700s, as enclosure laws privatized common lands across England, wild perennial greens were seen as nuisances. They grew on land that could be plowed for wheat or barley, crops that fed cities and generated taxes. The plant began to fade, not because it stopped working, but because the economy no longer had room for it. By the 1800s, spinach replaced it. Spinach, an annual from Persia, domesticated and refined, smooth leaves, mild flavor, quick growth, spinach could be planted in rows, harvested by the bundle, sold in markets. It looked clean, uniform, civilized. Good King Henry looked wild. The leaves were rough, the stems tough. It did not fit the Victorian ideal of order. But in remote places, the old ways persisted. In Lincolnshire, England, laborers still harvested it from roadsides in spring. In the Alps, Swiss and Austrian farmers kept patches alive. In Sweden, it was called mandelgrona, and rural families ate it through winter using preserved stores. These were not people with choices. They were people who remembered hunger. They kept the knowledge alive because forgetting meant death. Then came war. World War I tore Europe apart. Fields became battlefields. Farmers became soldiers. Food supplies collapsed. In Germany, the British naval blockade cut off imports. By 1917, cities starved. The government issued ration cards, but there was nothing to ration. People scoured the countryside for anything edible. Nettles, dandelions, dock, sorrel, Good King Henry. Wild greens saved thousands. They grew in bomb craters, along trenches, in the ruins of villages. You did not need to plant them. They were just there, defiant. After the war, memory faded again. The 1920s brought prosperity. Canned vegetables, refrigerated transport, supermarkets. Food became a product, not a process. Perennial greens were forgotten by everyone except the very old and the very poor. World War II brought it all back. Across occupied Europe, rations shrank to starvation levels. The Nazis seized grain, meat, eggs. What remained were weeds. In France, families foraged dandelions and dock. In Norway, people ate sorrel and Good King Henry from mountain pastures. In the Netherlands, during the hunger winter of 1944, 20,000 died. But those near wildlands survived by gathering perennials that had reseeded themselves for centuries. The plants asked nothing. They just grew. After liberation, Europe wanted to forget. Foraged greens meant suffering. They meant occupation, ration cards, death. The generation that survived refused to teach their children. Supermarkets returned. Spinach in plastic bags, lettuce in crates, clean, controlled. safe. The wild greens disappeared from tables, from memory. But they did not disappear from the earth. In England, Good King Henry still grows wild in Lincolnshire villages. In Switzerland, it thrives near old farmhouses. In Sweden, it spreads through pastures. Wherever it was planted centuries ago, it remains. Perennials do not forget. In the 1970s, something shifted. The Back to the Land movement began. Hippies and homesteaders rejected industrial food. They wanted independence, nutrition, flavor. They rediscovered old crops. Books like Stalking the Wild Asparagus by U.L. Gibbons taught a generation to forage. Good King Henry appeared in seed catalogs again, listed under heirloom vegetables. Permaculture designers called it a must-have. One planting, decades of harvests. Deep roots that mine minerals from subsoil. Leaves that emerge when gardens are still bare. Studies followed. In 1986, a nutritional analysis confirmed what folk knowledge always knew. More iron than spinach. More calcium than dairy. More protein than most vegetables. 0 pesticides needed. 0 fertilizer required. The plant feeds itself. Its roots host mycorrhizal fungi that pull nitrogen from the air and phosphorus from rock. It improves soil while feeding you. In the 1990s, chefs in Europe rediscovered it. In France, topinambour and wild greens became symbols of terroir, of regional identity. In England, Fergus Henderson, the nose-to-tail chef, served Good King Henry at his restaurant St. John. He treated it like asparagus, blanched and buttered. Critics called it a revelation, but it was not new. It was memory returning. So why is it still impossible to find? Walk into any supermarket in America, Canada, Australia, or the UK. You will see spinach, kale, arugula, chard. You will not see Good King Henry. You will not see perennial sorrel. You will not see mountain spinach. The reasons are simple and sinister. First, shelf life. Perennial greens are tougher than annuals. The leaves contain more fiber, more structure. They wilt slower, but they do not look as delicate. Supermarkets want vegetables that appear fresh for a week under fluorescent lights. Good King Henry looks wild. Customers, trained by decades of advertising, do not recognize it. They will not buy it. Second, uniformity. Industrial agriculture requires crops that germinate together, grow at the same rate, and reach harvest size simultaneously. Machines can then harvest entire fields in one pass. Good King Henry grows when it wants. Some plants shoot early, others wait. Leaves mature at different rates. You cannot mechanize the harvest. You need human hands, scissors, baskets. Labor costs money. Profit margins vanish. Third, reseeding. A farmer plants Good King Henry once. 10 years later, it still produces. That is 1 seed purchase per decade. Spinach requires new seeds every season. Seed companies profit from annuals. Perennials destroy the business model. No company will promote a crop that eliminates its own market. Fourth, bitterness. The oxalic acid that binds minerals also creates a sharp, bitter taste. Modern palates, raised on sweet corn and mild lettuce, reject bitterness. We have bred it out of everything. Carrots used to be bitter. We made them sweet. Cucumbers were bitter. We made them mild. Bitterness signals toxins to our ancient brains, but it also signals medicine. The most nutritious plants are bitter. We forgot that. Fifth, control. A crop that reseeds itself forever cannot be patented. Corporations cannot own it. Farmers cannot be locked into contracts. Communities that grow perennials do not need supply chains. They do not need trucking, refrigeration, or middlemen. They are independent. Systems of control cannot tolerate independence. So Good King Henry remains niche. You can buy seeds online from heirloom suppliers. A packet costs $5 and contains enough to start a patch that will outlive you. Gardeners who plant it rave. One reviewer wrote, "I planted 6 plants in 2005. By 2015, I had 60. I harvest twice a week from April to October. I have never bought spinach since. Another, my children call it dragon asparagus because the shoots look prehistoric. They eat it raw with salt, more vegetables than we can use. But these are hobbyists, not farms. The crop will never return to supermarkets unless the system collapses, and the system is collapsing. Climate change is accelerating, droughts intensify, heat waves kill lettuce, floods drown spinach. Annual vegetables bred for perfect conditions fail when conditions break. In California, water restrictions threaten farms. In Europe, summers now reach 45 degrees Celsius. Crops wilt. Perennials survive. Their roots go deep below the dry surface into moisture that annuals cannot reach. When heat kills shallow roots, deep tap roots pull water from stone. Good King Henry tolerates minus 30 degrees Celsius. It tolerates drought. It tolerates poor soil. It grows in rubble, in gravel, in the cracks of sidewalks. It does not care. This is not convenience. This is resilience. The difference will matter soon. Nutritionists are noticing. Iron deficiency affects 1.6 billion people globally. It is the most common nutrient deficiency on Earth. Women, children, and the poor suffer most. Spinach is marketed as the solution. Popeye, the cartoon sailor, convinced generations that spinach equals strength. But the iron in spinach is poorly absorbed. The oxalates block it. The bioavailability is roughly 2%. Good King Henry, boiled twice, offers 20% bioavailability, 10 times more effective. One serving provides half the daily iron requirement. Anemia causes fatigue, weakness, and impaired cognition. In children, it stunts development. In mothers, it causes complications during birth. The solution is not supplements shipped from factories. It is not fortified cereals produced by corporations. The solution is growing in ditches, ignored, forgotten. Calcium deficiency is rising. Osteoporosis affects 200 million people. Dairy is promoted as essential. But dairy requires industrial farming, refrigerated trucks, and processing plants. It requires methane-producing cows and subsidized feed crops. Good King Henry requires dirt. The calcium content rivals dairy. The magnesium, which dairy lacks, helps the body absorb it. This is nutrition as nature designed it, synergistic, complete. Protein scarcity threatens billions. As populations grow and meat becomes unsustainable, the world searches for alternatives. Soybeans, lentils, chickpeas, all annuals, all requiring planting, water, harvest. Good King Henry produces 4.2 grams of protein per 100 grams of leaves. That is substantial for a green. A large harvest from one plant yields 600 grams of leaves. That is 25 grams of protein from one picking. Multiply by 60 plants. Multiply by 20 pickings per year. One backyard patch produces more protein than most people realize. But the system will not tell you this. It cannot. The food industry is built on dependence. You must buy seeds, fertilizers, pesticides. You must purchase vegetables shipped 2,000 miles. You must consume and repurchase. A perennial green that propagates itself forever breaks the cycle. It creates sovereignty. Sovereignty is dangerous. In the 1980s, the United States government pushed hybrid seeds in Africa. The seeds produced high yields, but they were sterile. Farmers could not save them. They had to buy new seeds every year. This created dependence. When droughts came, when prices spiked, farmers starved. Traditional crops, the perennials and hardy annuals that reseeded themselves, had been abandoned. Diversity was lost. Resilience vanished. The same pattern repeats everywhere. Indigenous crops that enable independence are erased. Amaranth, once sacred to the Aztecs, was banned by Spanish conquistadors. The penalty for growing it was death. Why? Because amaranth required no church, no lord, no tax. It grew freely and fed communities without permission. Quinoa, forgotten for centuries, was called Indian food, too inferior for civilized people. Now it is expensive and exported, no longer feeding the Andean communities that developed it. Taro, breadfruit, sago, moringa. Perennials that fed millions, replaced by wheat, rice, corn. Annuals that require control. The pattern is not accidental. It is design. What can feed you without a system is a threat to the system. Good King Henry survived because it is unkillable. You can mow it, and it regrows. You can dig it up, and fragments resprout. You can ignore it, and it thrives. This is why it persists in old villages, near ruins, along forgotten roads. It does not need us, but we need it. The knowledge of how to use it is fading. Old Europeans who remember are dying. Their children never learned. Cookbooks from the 1800s list recipes. Good King Henry soup, buttered shoots, pie fillings. Modern cookbooks ignore it. You can search 1,000 recipe sites and find nothing. This is not accidental. Food culture is shaped by industry. Ingredients that cannot be sold are not promoted. Recipes that use them are not published. Chefs who cook them are not celebrated unless they frame it as foraging, an exotic novelty, not a staple. But some remember. In homesteading forums, people share tips. Harvest shoots when 6 inches tall. Boil leaves twice, 10 minutes each. The first water will be dark, bitter. Discard it. The second boiling makes them tender. Sauté with garlic and olive oil. The flavor is earthy, rich, deeper than spinach, more satisfying. Or use young leaves raw in salads, mixed with milder greens to balance bitterness. The shoots, prepared like asparagus, taste similar, slightly nutty. The seeds are edible too, though small. Thrash the dried seed heads over a cloth. Winnow away chaff. What remains can be cooked like quinoa or ground into flour. During the Irish famine of the 1840s, people survived on dockseed porridge. It was not ideal, but it was life. Good King Henry teaches through persistence. It does not beg to be planted. It does not demand care. It simply grows year after year, decade after decade. In a world obsessed with optimization, with improvement, with innovation, this steadiness is radical. We are taught that progress requires complexity. That better food comes from laboratories, from genetic modification, from vertical farms with LED lights. But the most nutritious green on earth grows in gravel. It does not need technology. It needs nothing. This is the lesson empires cannot tolerate. Abundance does not require them. Health does not require pharmaceuticals. Strength does not require supplements. It requires seeds, soil, and time. But time is what the system cannot sell. A plant that lives 30 years and reseeds itself forever offers no quarterly profits. It offers freedom. And freedom is the most dangerous crop of all. Climate collapse will teach us again. When trucks stop running, when supply chains fail, when supermarkets empty, the perennials will still be there. Good King Henry will push through cracks in the pavement. Sorrel will spread across abandoned fields. Dock will thrive in ditches. Those who kept the knowledge, who planted the seeds, who ignored the sneers, will eat. Those who trusted the system will learn what hunger means. This is not fantasy. This is pattern. Every collapse in history followed the same arc. Centralized food systems fail first. Rome fell, and citizens starved in cities while rural villages survived on perennials and foraged foods. The Bronze Age collapse erased kingdoms, but the farmers who grew diverse, resilient crops endured. The Black Death killed half of Europe, but those near wild lands, those who knew plants, had better survival rates. We are not different. We are not immune. Our food system is more fragile than any in history. 3 crops, wheat, rice, corn, provide 60% of human calories, all annuals, all dependent on fossil fuels, fertilizers, pesticides, all vulnerable to heat, drought, and disease. When they fail, billions will have no backup, except the few who remembered. Good King Henry will not save the world, but it can save you. 3 plants in your yard, 5 in a community garden, 10 along a forgotten fence line. Each plant produces 600 grams of greens per harvest, 20 harvests per year. That is 12 kilograms per plant, 30 kilograms from 3 plants. Enough to supplement your diet from April to October, enough to trade with neighbors, enough to teach your children that food does not come from stores. It comes from the ground, and it can come forever if you let it. The seeds are still available. They are not restricted, not banned, not illegal. You can buy them, plant them, and start a patch that will outlive you. The plant will reseed. Your grandchildren will harvest it. This is generational wealth that requires no money, just memory. If this knowledge matters to you, if resilience matters, share this. Subscribe and spread it to those who need to remember. The system will not teach this. It cannot, but we can. Every share is an act of preservation. Every planting is an act of rebellion. The vault remains open for those willing to dig.